When it comes to the art of decision-making, we like to believe that we are great at being rational and objective, but nothing could be further from the truth. Our minds are constantly swayed by the different cognitive biases around us. And by learning these biases, not only will you be able to make better judgment, but you'll also be able to guard yourself against people who are trying to exploit you. That's why in this Part 2 video, we'll be exploring the 13 remaining cognitive biases that affect our decision-making and how we can overcome them. Bias number 13, over-optimism tendency. This tendency reflects our natural inclination to be overly optimistic about the future. For example, when a person decides to start a new business venture, they might underestimate the time and resources required for success, assuming that everything will unfold smoothly. This can result in financial setbacks and huge disappointments. To overcome this bias, it's important to balance optimism with a dose of realism. Consult with individuals who can provide a more objective perspective, or seek advice from experts and mentors who can offer insights based on their experience to avoid costly mistakes due to over-optimism. Bias number 14, deprival superreaction tendency. This refers to our tendency to overreact when we feel deprived of something we desire. It's closely tied to the fear of missing out. That deprivation will eventually lead to impulsive decisions driven by a sense of urgency and scarcity. A classic example is when you impulsively buy items on sale, even if you didn't need them, simply because they were discounted and you didn't want to miss out on a good deal. One way to overcome this bias is to create a list of your needs and wants and prioritize them. The key is to recognize the emotional pull of scarcity and urgency and resist impulsive decisions driven by the fear of missing out. Bias number 15, social proof tendency. This refers to our tendency to look to the actions and behaviors of others for guidance in uncertain situations. For example, if you see a crowded restaurant and a long line of people waiting, you might assume it's an excellent choice because so many others have made that decision. This is social proof tendency in action. Overcoming this tendency involves developing a sense of independent thinking and critical evaluation. It's about recognizing that popularity or consensus does not always equal the best choice. Bias number 16, contrast misreaction tendency. This is our tendency to overreact to changes or differences when they are presented in comparison to previous experiences. For example, when you're shopping for a new smartphone, if you've been using an older model, the moment you see a new phone that looks way better, works faster, comes with better quality camera, and so on, you might feel the urge to upgrade solely based on the contrast of your older phone. That's why it's important to establish clear decision criteria, define what truly matters in a given situation before making choices. When shopping for a smartphone, for example, consider your actual needs and budget instead of the contrast in looks and features. Bias number 17, stress influence tendency. This tendency reflects our natural vulnerability to making impulsive and often irrational decisions when under stress or pressure. For example, during an argument with a loved one, you might say things in the heat of the moment that you later regret. So when you find yourself in a high-stress situation, take a moment to calm your mind and assess the situation objectively. Deep breathing, meditation, or simply taking a short break can help you regain control over your decision-making process. Bias number 18, availability misweighing tendency. Our mind gives more weight to information that is readily available in our memory, information that is easily recalled, which may not be the most accurate or representative of a situation. For example, if you've recently heard about a plane crash on the news, that vivid and emotionally charged information might lead you to overestimate the risks of flying, even though statistics indicate it's one of the safest modes of transportation. One practical strategy is to gather data and information from a variety of sources over a longer time frame. Consider both recent events and historical trends to get a more balanced perspective. Bias number 19, use it or lose it tendency. This tendency is rooted in our fear of losing out on something valuable or useful. This can lead us to accumulate possessions, maintain commitments, or continue behaviors that have outlived their usefulness simply because we don't want to let go. Think about the clutter at home or the items you rarely use but can't bear to part with. Overcoming this tendency is no easy task as it requires you to recognize when something has outlived its utility or no longer aligns with your goals, and more importantly, being willing to let go. Bias number 20, drug misinfluence tendency. This is the tendency to make choices under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or other substances that impair our judgment. Such substances can alter our perception, diminish our self-control, and lead to impulsive or irrational decisions. So if you find yourself in this kind of situation, wait until you are sober and your judgment is clear before making choices with significant consequences. Bias number 21. Senescence misinfluence tendency. This cognitive bias is rooted in our natural inclination to resist change and favor familiar methods or ideas as we age. It reflects our resistance to embracing new technologies or innovative approaches, often stemming from a belief that the old ways are better. So if you want to stay young and overcome this bias, try staying open to change and innovation, embrace lifelong learning, and actively seek opportunities to learn something new. Bias number 22. Authority misinfluence tendency. Authority misinfluence tendency stems from our inclination to trust and follow the lead of individuals or institutions we perceive as authorities. This leads us to give undue credibility to their opinions, often without questioning or critically evaluating their advice. For example, we sometimes accept advice unquestioningly from medical professionals without seeking a second opinion or considering alternative treatments. Hence, it's important to seek multiple perspectives and consult various experts or sources before making significant decisions. Encourage open dialogue and debate in professional and personal matters, even if someone holds a position of authority. Bias number 23. Twaddle tendency. This bias reflects our inclination to be influenced by lengthy, complex, or jargon-filled communication, often mistaking it for depth or expertise, even if the content lacks substance or evidence. To overcome this, one must practice active listening or reading. Focus on the actual content and whether it provides meaningful information or evidence to support the claims, and never be afraid to ask for clarification or seek simpler explanations. Bias number 24. Reason-respecting tendency. Reason-respecting tendency reflects our natural inclination to follow what appears to be rational or logical. We are often swayed by arguments and explanations that align with our pre-existing beliefs or those we perceive as rationale, even when the logic is flawed or incomplete. Overcoming this involves developing strong critical thinking skills and the ability to discern sound reasoning from flawed arguments. Practice active skepticism. When presented with an argument or proposal, don't accept it at face value. Take the time to evaluate the evidence and consider alternative perspectives. Bias number 25. Lollapalooza tendency. This is the ultimate bias in which multiple cognitive biases combine and create a greater impact on our decisions. Overcoming this bias is no easy task, as it involves developing a heightened awareness of how multiple biases can combine and influence your decisions. It's about actively identifying when several cognitive errors are at play and taking steps to counteract their effects. However, with enough practice and regularly assessing your decision-making process, you'll be able to notice your choices become more informed, more rational, and more aligned with your goals. And there you have it. These are the 13 remaining cognitive biases that affect our decision-making. If you enjoyed this Part 2 content, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Thank you for watching. Until next time, hope to see you on my next video.